Hey everybody, my name is Wieteke Koolhof from Design4awareness and I'm here with my really good friend Leah Blitz.
Hello!
And we have decided to make a video. We know each other from the path of our own exploration into multidimensionality. And so I've asked my friend Leah if she would like to make a video with me about that.
Yes.
And she said yes. So.
I'm happy to. So, yeah, this journey into other dimensions started quite early for you.
Yes,
right?
It did. I was 3 years old when I had my first experiences that were out of the ordinary, you might say.
Yeah.
And so very early in life I was woken up to the realization that there was more than at least other people, or the reflection of the reality as I was creating it for myself then was showing me that was out there. So it wasn't confirmed by my parents, for instance, or other friends, that what I was seeing was also something they were seeing. So that was interesting.
So how did this occur? Like, what would you see?
I experienced visitations of what I now understand to be multidimensional beings, and I didn't get that in the beginning, of course. And they would look often like animals. They would choose, I understand that now, animal shapes to dress up in, you might say, or to make themselves visible in our dimension. And I had very intense dreams. I've always felt like I'm living two lives, and this kept on going basically my entire life. It actually calmed down more when I started to understand what it was about, but it was very intense until I woke up to the realization what it was about, and then it calmed down and it became more functional. And in the beginning it was more like a wake-up call. Do you understand?
I think so.
So
yeah.
The dreams were very intense to point out to me, look, this is a part of reality that you want to look at, that you haven't, that you're not using yet. So it was kind of turbulent, as a wake-up call should be.
Yeah.
I can see how I have co-created that in a sense for myself, because now when I look back at the past, when I look back at my childhood, everything that ever happened, I can now, in retrospect, I can see the purposes it has served, every part of the journey, even though it may have been startling or upsetting for me as a child in the beginning.
Yes. So you would be in your room?
Yes.
By yourself?
Yes.
And then this being would pop up, or how?
Sometimes they would take take their time, which was really, I would hear them, and they would start with little sounds or humming, and I was bright awake. I know I was clear awake, and from a corner of the room, for instance, slowly but surely they would start to appear and come out of the shadows, and then go to the center of the room where you can be sure of, okay, now it's a fact, there's something in my room because it's right there in the open. And my first responses to that I remember, I was just frozen.
Scared.
I was so afraid. I didn't dare moving. And my heart was pounding like crazy, and I realized they would like seek eye contact with me, and they would choose shapes that are animal but slightly different. And now understand that I love animals. I really love animals. I was the first vegetarian in my family and stuff like this. So I can understand from their perspective that you would choose an animal figure because that might gain the trust of the child, you see. And on a higher level we had an agreement to meet, and we had an agreement as well for them to be so much in the open, because on a higher level, I knew that I wanted to wake up in the dream that we now call physical reality. So I apparently I discovered that I wanted to wake up from that as early as possible, as early as I could probably handle, and 3 was a good age for that.
Okay.
So the first memory started then, and I was terrified, and this is why I remembered it so well, because it was so scary in the beginning. So the animals would come and go. If I would scream for my parents or somebody to come, they would disappear in a second and it would be totally, really gone. So I was the only one who could see that. Later on it transformed, it started to change. I also realized that there was a link at some point between seeing them and being taken on, as I experienced it, journeys out of my body. I will never be able to prove to anyone that I was physically somewhere else or not. But I have experienced it as going away, really being taken along to other dimensions and going to what I call astral school, which was actually a lot of fun. So for a really long time I didn't link the two. As a child, I didn't realize that what I saw in my room still awake had anything to do with going on the trips to astral school, as I call it. But later I started to realize it started to merge, to fuse. That visitation, trip. And then, but still sometimes it was also separate. So I could have a visitation in 1 week and have the realization of a download or something that I had learned in astral school 2 weeks after that. And sometimes even during the day, at the moment when I needed the information. Do you understand this?
Yes.
So you would
remember it.
Yeah, so I would have a block of information suddenly come to me, and nobody ever told me that. And I was way too young to have picked that up from a self-help book or something.
Yeah.
And I'm saying self-help because most often these blocks of information were self-empowering, were really loving and guiding and confirming my purpose in life, because I had chosen a challenging childhood with a lot of turbulence in it, but this was like a guiding factor in the back. But because I was afraid to share these stories with my environment, I remember when I was 5 years old, I tried to tell a babysitter. I didn't dare tell my mom because I thought she was going to be angry with me for being awake and screaming in the night and upsetting her, because your parents just want you to sleep.
Yeah.
And she's a single mom and she had to work, and it was all like pressure on her, and I was born an empath, so I was always trying to not upset other people. I was really much trying to comfort my parents for their divorce, and whenever I was either with the one or the other, and there was so much where I felt a mediator, like a born mediator. And I kind of decided at 5, when I tried to tell a babysitter, which seemed a safe place to tell my story.
Yeah.
She got really upset. So I was starting...
Like what? She got afraid? Or...
Yeah. She could feel my own fear. So I was sharing about the animals in my room and how close they would get to me, and how I felt sucked in some other world by looking them in the eyes.
Okay.
And then she was, "You're making this up, right?" She was like really feeling it. This must have been a 14-year-old girl, this poor babysitter. But I felt safe to tell her the story because she was closer to my age. She wasn't one of my parents, and I liked her. So it was like an experiment. Let's tell this
So she was the first person that you ever
that
told?
I actually told what I was experiencing in my room.
Because so at the age of 3, you already know that this was extraordinary.
Yeah. And I knew it's a crazy thing, maybe. I could feel into other people's emotions so much, so young. There was this really, really clear decision not to want to upset other people, not to be a burden, because my parents were already going through a lot. My family was in turmoil.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna not be here, really.
Yeah.
And let that happen.
Yeah.
So I was in my own survival mode as a child a lot. And I changed places a lot, so later. So when I told this babysitter and she responded like that, she told me something in the lines of, "I hope you're making this up." Because it sounded like, "Otherwise I'm gonna tell your mom." And when I realized it was going there, I was like, yeah, I'm making it up. I really I remembered just confirming to her, yes, I'm making it up. Just basically giving it up. I'm not even gonna try tell people this because this is how they respond. So that was my conclusion at that time.
At the age of 5, you say?
Yes, yeah. And I didn't speak to anybody about it until I started dating. Like when I had some boyfriends, a little bit, and not too much either then. Maybe age 25, I started to slightly open up about it. So 10 years later. No, 20 years later.
Wow.
Like mathematics is not my thing. So yeah, I really decided not to speak of it for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning you were afraid.
Yeah, but it was the separation between what I saw happening, being awake, and what was happening in my dream life, which I call download dreams, astral travel, out-of-body experiences.
Yeah.
And that was most of it amazing and beautiful and loving, and I felt guided. I felt there was a knowing within me and a very, very clear interest to connect to people, to have real communications, to talk about things that matter. So also I had friends of all ages all the time. I could speak to everybody because I could feel into other people so much and understand the emotions. I always wanted to be really real with people, like have an actual connection.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there was something different in my perception of the world.
Yeah.
I felt.
Yeah. And so can you describe to us like how is this astral school like? When would you go there?
So once in a while I would go there in my experience, and yeah, so
Like in a dream or not?
it's like a dream, but it's more realistic. So
Yeah.
it's much easier to remember. Now I remember my dreams rather easily,
Yeah.
but this is something you would, if you would want to not remember it, you couldn't, because it's as realistic as day life is like this.
Yeah.
So super realistic. I
Yeah.
would suddenly be there. Also at age 6, I remember being a dolphin. I was also being like, I don't want to say sucked in, because I know all of this is going on agreement, but at the time it felt very random.
Mm-hmm.
But now I understand why everything cross-connected. I'm very transparent. I've chosen to be very transparent in this life to other lives. So I know there is a part of my soul cross-connecting to the dolphins. And there is a
How do you
life
know
as a
that?
dolphin.
How did
Because
it
I was
come to
it.
you?
I was 6 and I could embody the dolphin. I felt what it was like to be a dolphin. And I
All of
wasn't...
a sudden you were sitting
Yes.
on your chair.
No. This wasn't a dream.
Okay.
This is one of those dreams.
Yeah. Okay.
So in the night that would happen. All of a sudden I was flying through the ocean and I could make these jumps and I could feel what it is like to have this tail, and I felt what it is like to have this body, to be in this body, and it was fascinating. And I understood the sounds, and I got the view, and the colors were different, and it was full power being a dolphin. And I wasn't even really interested in dolphins before that. But
Okay.
after that dream, which I call a download dream,
Yeah.
I was talking about nothing else but dolphins. I just wanted to see them, and Mom, I want to see dolphins. So it was really, really like that. This sudden interest in things. Like, I've had many download dreams about the nature of reality, quantum physics, how do dreams work, guiding messages, and then afterwards that would trigger an interest for that subject, and then I would go to the library and get books about it. Also, I was very interested in food and nutrition very young. How does that work? How does the body work? This is one of the reasons why I couldn't eat meat anymore very young. While nobody in my family was a vegetarian.
So at what age did you start
12.
to be a vegetarian?
Yeah, which is, maybe I would have wanted it earlier, but 12 was the age where I had the power to start the battle in several households because my parents were split up, and convince everybody of my wish to no longer eat meat. So things like that.
Yeah.
I was always doing investigations.
So so first I imagine like you dream you were a dolphin, and then probably the adults, they just say, oh, that was just a dream, or I don't know when.
No, I didn't really tell the dream. I was just suddenly
Not
obsessed
even.
with dolphins.
Okay, but so when did these things make sense? When did you understand, like, maybe I really was a dolphin? So you were having these dreams, downloads, travels.
Yeah.
And when would these experiences actually start making sense to you? Like,
I would say that's a whole journey. It's been such a journey. So many things happened. It started to become clearer at age 24 when so I was out of the house. At some point all this information just kept coming. So imagine by then it's been coming to me for 20 something years. And I won't lie to you, at that point I felt kind of schizo. But I knew I'm a bright thinker, I'm a good learner, you know, I can go to school, but it was so weird to see the world not necessarily reflecting what I knew to be true inside.
Yeah.
So I would read the newspapers, and for instance, somebody had written about how they see the brain and how that works, and everything inside me would be, this is incorrect, it is not a complete picture. And I could cry over that, and I wasn't even into science or science fiction at all, not at all. And it moved me so deeply, and I just realized there's so much more going on here at some level. And it all has to do with the meaning we put into life and the lack of love. I was like, why is this upsetting me so much, this message? And it's so not holistic, you know. And everything in me was like, it's incorrect. There's so many pieces missing. And I didn't know how I knew that. But it was a conviction without a doubt. And I couldn't doubt it, you know. It was just so strong. And then I went to a doctor at 24, and I said, okay, I want to have myself tested or something, because I don't understand my mind. So I was doing art school at that time, and I was having a great time with that. I understood very deeply that following your heart and your passion is the way to go. And for me, it was beyond understanding, it was knowing. It was also, if I didn't do it, I would manifest a lot of very direct resistance in my life. Not doing what I really want to do, or not speaking. You
already learned that lesson.
Yeah, well, by default, like by experience, by trying to fit in and feel how painful that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So by these bumps in the road, I learned just by going along. And so I had the guts to do art school, and of course I had to also pass through this group of people like, you're never gonna get a job with art school, and this is for dreamers. And I'm like, well, then I'm a dreamer, and then I'll listen to John Lennon, and I'll believe in this song, and that's what resonates with me, so that's what I'm gonna do. And so I was in art school, and this is when I found okay, still I'm having this, it's bumping into each other, what I see in the news, what I read in the papers, everything, the world doesn't make sense to me. So I went to this doctor, and he sent me to a therapist, you might say, to have a few conversations. He said, well, you talk to him, and then you'll figure out for yourself if something is really wrong, quote unquote. So I went there, and he sent me to a regular institute to have a conversation with what I think is the normal therapist that they send you along to if you go to your house doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy he didn't give me anything chemical or something, you know, because I was feeling kind of down. But they don't do that so quickly in the Netherlands, and I'm so happy for that, because I was already into homeopathy, and I didn't want to have anything to do with chemical medicine. Mm-hmm. So I went to speak with this person, and he appeared to be an ex-hypnotherapist. So his knowledge was way beyond the regular field, and I feel so blessed that this is the person that came into my life.
Yeah.
So when I came to him with these stories about my dreams, he understood, and it was not a big deal at all. And here I was for 20 years thinking that I can't tell anyone about what I'm experiencing because it's so weird, you know. And he's like, well, you're early in life to come out with these things. But that's a good thing, and it's nice that you're looking at it now, because you're not waiting until you have a burnout somewhere in your 30s.
Yeah.
And
so he was already aware of ETs?
He didn't know it was these beings.
Okay.
I kept telling or sharing my story to him as dreams. Like, I was still saying, these are very intense dreams I have. I see things I still didn't know. These were extraterrestrials myself.
Yeah, okay.
And I wasn't watching any sci-fi movies because I couldn't handle most of the time there's fighting in them.
Yeah.
I was like, really, no. So, but he gave me the tools nevertheless without needing to know what it was exactly. He could give me the information that I really, really needed at that time, which is, this is part of you. and you can work with this, and whatever it is not against you. And this is basically all I needed to hear, what I really needed to hear. And I got that very quickly. And he's like, there's nothing wrong with you, you're just interpreting your dreams against yourself. Because I felt like something was wrong because I got this information and this is what I see and it doesn't match. So I thought that was wrong. And he's like, there's no fault in that. If you get information, you can use that to your benefit, no matter what you see in the outside world. And this was really important for me to see and to understand.
So then something shifted.
Totally big shift for me, because then I started using the information in a way that was beneficial for me. I understood, like, oh, you know, this is an old paradigm thing that we get from society, that you need to fit in and otherwise something is wrong with you. So I just stopped judging that part of me. And then very quickly after that, this is really interesting, I saw my first UFO. And then everything got into like a speedy, more accelerated journey, because after seeing the UFO, and by now I've seen several in my life, in several kinds, in several situations.
Cool.
Then I got these, every time I saw a UFO, I had dreams, and the night after I saw them, explaining more to me about this ship or what's going on with it. And then everywhere in my dreams, all of a sudden, everywhere there were ETs. It was all over. And then it was like, it was so in my face, and I was
like, how was it all over? Like, they were
in
around you?
masses. They were there with masses. All groups of ETs were like lots of UFOs in my dreams. After seeing this one, they were everywhere in my dreams, and it was so overwhelming. I was like, okay, maybe this is something I want to look into. Like I told you before, sometimes the information would trigger a curiosity in me. And of course the sighting itself did that. But then the dreams emphasized it. So I would start to go on the internet and explore more. And by then I also started to meditate, turn more inwards.
So this was age 24 still?
Yes. 25 I started to really get into meditation. And it was funny because all of these things, every time I traveled to Asia after doing art school, and I went there for a few months by myself, and I went to Thailand. So this was the first very friendly, beautiful country that I traveled to by myself. And I would go to monasteries and be there for a week or 2 weeks and do the meditation, the silent meditation. And every time I would bow and turn inward, I got this shiver over my entire body. Like, and now I understand, these were the first moments that my guide was making contact with me in a conscious state, because it's awake, I'm awake, and it was like a little nudge. Yes.
So you know, all like, these animals, these dreams, they came from...
That changed when I was 19.
Okay.
The animals changed into humanoid.
Alright.
So that had changed at age 19, and I left the house at early 17. Due to all kinds of circumstances, and at 19 I don't know exactly, I didn't know back then, I understand now that I had gone through transformation in myself, and they mirrored that to me. Now you're ready to go from, you could say, first chakra understanding, in a sense survival mode, to a higher kind of knowing, and now we are gonna communicate with you on this level, human to human in a sense, instead of on this lower level. And at 19, at some point, I was in the room. It was so realistic that I cannot say it if it was a dream or I was awake.
Wow.
But I know I was in the room, and I could see through the room into another dimension in the same location, you could say. And through that dimension, a white cat came in. So the animals also had changed color. They really reflect the states where you are in to you. This is really how I look at it and how I've learned to understand it. From darker animals when I was younger into lighter animals when I got older. And this was a white cat jumping in, and in front of my eyes warping into a humanoid person, a male figure, really angelic, very beautiful, very loving.
But like physical or like
No.
transparent?
Yeah, transparent. More like compact. Like I can see through him, but he's lightening,
Yeah.
giving light off.
Okay.
But so beautiful, so beautiful. And I felt the love, and I understood within a second. He's showing me this because this has always been him.
Yeah.
And all the other animals, there's been many kinds of races interacting with me. So, but this one is what I now understand to be my guide.
Okay. And
Are
you
you?
thought this is an angel, or you thought this is a what did you
Beautiful,
think?
beautiful, loving being.
Yeah, just to be
A messenger, because he came to give me a message in that moment that really served me in that moment of my life. So yeah, that's where I started to understand they are messengers. But yeah,
At the age
so
of
that was at 19, and I still didn't know TT, and that came like 24-ish.
Yeah. And then the pieces kind of
Started to speed up, and everything started to come together. And also I felt this constant urge to do something with meditation or chanting, and been a Buddhist for a while actively in the Netherlands as well. And then I realized I was too holistic for the group that I was in, because I was falling in love with all truth. And it's in a lot of religions and movements, there is truth at the core of it.
yeah.
So when I started to see the truth in all of it simultaneously and falling in love with that, the truth, more than any of the paths, I realized, oh, I don't want to be a part of a path. And then I left the Buddhist group that I had joined, but I was still in love with the chanting and still in love with the meditation and with the tools.
Yeah.
Because I realized the truth is within all of us individually. And it's just the techniques that I really love, and I don't have to be a part of the group to still make use of the techniques. That's what I learned, I don't know, at age 28, 29.
So for all your youth, you never found someone who had similar experiences, who you could talk about
Nope.
this?
No.
Only at 24, when you started with your
When I had this UFO sighting, I told some of my boyfriends along the way. I had a few boyfriends now and then.
Yeah.
I would speak about the dreams and that they were very intense.
Yeah.
I had told some of them that I have been perceiving throughout my youth figures standing at my bed, sometimes looking more human, sometimes less human. They usually wouldn't go into it or think, oh, you're very sensitive, so maybe you saw ghosts.
Yeah.
Or for them it would be such a sensitive topic, you don't want to freak somebody else out. So there I would go again into my old behavior. Oh, I don't want to upset you, so I'll just not speak about it anymore then.
Okay, so that has been, I imagine, quite challenging youth.
That was a part of a challenge for me. Yeah, at that time. But I can totally see how I chose that.
Okay.
Now I can see how it was training for me to have I constantly invited myself to be able to deal with that, to not freak out about it, to see it as a part of my life that could serve me. So especially at age 24, this therapist helped me to understand that, how I could use it. And then it really started serving me. So I just needed to hear that.
So that was the transformation.
That was a transformation point, and it instantly kicked in the interest for extraterrestrial beings right there, and a natural longing for meditation and going inward. Also started then. It felt very logical. I didn't see how beautifully that all fit in, but now I see. Oh my, it's been so with the flow. Just by me following those little inner voices, my own voice, my own longing from my heart to do more meditation, and by following that, and to do more painting, and by following that, to do the art school, because this is what I would be doing in art school. Most of my art was about my experiences. This was my way to process. I was painting about it and drawing about it and making poetry about it, and even sometimes winning prizes with my poetry. But it was like, that was a language I could use, and I could just tell people, oh, I'm making this up. I wouldn't tell them about the source. Yeah, so throughout my 20s, and then I felt this need or wish to, at some point the information was serving me so incredibly well, and I felt so freed from society and from dogmatic thinking, and like, wow, people would come to me like, how do you get so happy, in a sense? Why are you always optimistic? How is it even possible that you always see the light in everything? And I'm like, yeah, but it's a muscle, you can train it, you know. It's fun. And it's like I was just being invited to do something with coaching. So from being an artist for some years after art school, I started to go into creative coaching.